Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name's Stephen. I'm a traditionally published fantasy author. Today I'm doing the first of two videos related to my recent trip to America. I just went to my first ever convention as an author. This was Capricon 43 in Chicago. Today's video is just going to be a bit of a book haul, talking about some of the books I got, where I went, what I did, and the next video will be me talking about the event, how I found it, what went on, and that kind of thing. So the first book that I picked up when I was out there was The Adventures of Kavalier and Clay by Michael Chabon. The name is familiar to me because I know that he's worked on some of the genre shows, on Star Trek and a bunch of other things, and this book has come up many times. I've heard many people talk about it. I keep thinking, oh, I'll go and pick it up at some point. I just haven't got around to it. And when I was in Chicago on the first full day, once I'd sort of recovered from my jet lag, went to Madison Street Books, which is a great bookshop, and had some copies of The Coward, which I signed in there, and picked this up and a couple of other books. So I'm looking forward to reading it. You know, it won the Pulitzer Prize. It ties into comic book stuff, which I'm a very big fan of, and superheroes. So I'm really interested to see what this is and finally get into some of Michael Chabon's written work, because up to this point I've only seen stuff that he's done on TV. The second book that I picked up is the hardback of Nettle and Bone. Now I got this from the dealer room in Capricon. One of the dealers had lots of books, and when I picked it up I was delighted to find that not only was it a hardback, but that in fact it is signed by T. Kingfisher, or Ursula Vernon, which is her actual name. And I've heard many great things about this author. One of my friends, this is her favourite author ever. So when we were looking through the books in the dealer room, we were amazed to find that all of them were actually signed by Ursula Vernon, or T. Kingfisher. And this was because the bookseller had been to a convention a few months ago, and she'd been there and she'd signed their entire stock. So I've heard great things about this book, great things about this author. It's fantasy, but also it's quite a dark edge to it. So sounds right up my kind of street. It's quite a short book, as you can see, and it sounds really, really interesting, really, really unique. So I'm looking forward to digging into this, and if I enjoy it, maybe picking up some more books by the same author. As you may or may not have noticed, I'm not American, I'm English, and I was familiar with the name Anthony Bourdain, but I didn't really know a lot about him. And unlike most people who came to him through his books and perhaps seeing him on other shows, I came to him through his travel programs, where he'd go around the world, try the local food, meet the people, get involved with the culture, and just kind of explore. So that's how I first came to know about him, and through some of the other TV shows that he'd done. And then I went back and read more about the man, and I found him a fascinating guy, and obviously his death was very, very tragic a few years ago. So I have read Medium Raw, and I wanted to go back and read more about him. And although I love food, I'm not specifically a foodie person who loves the culture and is interested in chefs and watch cookery programs. I don't really do that kind of thing. However, I was in Barnes & Noble at the DePaul University near Chicago, and I saw Kitchen Confidential, which I think was probably his most famous book. And it's more about the man that I'm interested in. I'm interested to see what he talks about, how he talks about things, and see through his lens what it was like to be this kind of rock star chef who then went on to become a celebrity in essence on TV and known to millions of people around the world from lots of different cultures for all of the work that he did, and highlighting not just their food, but them as a people, them as a country, because he went to some parts of the world that others might never explore, never think about going, and he would just go there and say, okay, show me what you've got, let's see, try the food. And he was so open and so honest, and you know, he was quite a charismatic man, and I found him fascinating because of that. So I'm really curious to see and learn more about him as an individual. The next book I picked up is The Helm of Midnight by Marina Lostetter. Sorry, apologies if I got that wrong. This is actually a really hard book to get in the UK. I don't know why. You know, it's published by Tor. You'd think in the UK it'd be easy to get, but I really struggled to find a copy. So as soon as I saw it on a bookshelf out there, I picked it up. Now I know there's a sequel within this series that's coming out soon, and this book has been out probably 3 years maybe now, but you'd think by now it'd be easy to get hold of. Nope, wasn't the case. So I picked this up. There again, it's fantasy, but it's got kind of a horror element. It sounds quite creepy, it sounds quite dark. Exactly my kind of thing, the kind of thing that I'm interested in reading in fantasy that's a little bit different from the bog standard. So I'll be reading this year for sure, even though I've got a giant TBR. I'll be reading it, and yeah, I'll see what I think of it. So, very, very curious, and in a very interesting premise. If you don't know anything about it, I'd say check it out. Fellow tuber and science fantasy author, I think that's how he's described, Christopher Rocchio, very well regarded, done very well for himself, and I haven't actually read any of his books. I've seen him, I've chatted to him a bit on social media and on YouTube and stuff, but we've never actually spoken, and I haven't read any of his books. So there again, I was out there and I saw Empire of Silence, which is the first one in this neat little paperback. I thought, okay, I'm curious, I want to see what's going on. It sounds like a lot of the kind of books that I really enjoy. People have said it's a bit Dune, it's a bit Star Wars, it's all these other things mixed together, and it sounds really interesting. Lots of great press about it, people talking about it all the time, saying it's one of their favourite series. So, picked up a copy. I'll be reading that soon. It's quite a chunky book, as you can see. It's about 700 pages or so. So, a bit of a beast, but I'm curious. I'm really interested to see what this is about, and yeah, I'll be reading that very soon as well. One of the things I like most of all about going to conventions, there are many, many reasons, but one of them is finding new authors and new writers that I don't know. Now, the guest of honour at Capricorn 43 was Stephen Brust, and I knew a little bit about him. I'll admit I hadn't read any of his books before, but I thought, okay, I'm curious to see what he's like, I'm curious to find out more about him, and I picked up a copy of the first one of his Vlad Taldos series, Jereg. It's a little old paperback that I picked up and thought, yeah, I'm going to read this. As it happens, I didn't get a chance to read it. However, during the course of the convention, I interacted with him, I went to some panels, I heard him speak, and I found him to be thoughtful, charismatic, really intelligent, really funny. He had great examples, he had great stories, and that made me more curious to pick up his work and to see some of the different books within this series, because the way he talked about them was that although they're all part of a larger series, there's something like 17 books now, I think, in the series. Each one is slightly different. He's challenged himself every time he did one to write it in a slightly different way. And they're all different voices, and it sounds really, really good. So I went and then picked up a couple more of his books and got them signed. So I picked up Isola, which is one of the Vlad Taltos books. And then the most recent one that has just come out, or last year, is Velista. And so I picked this up, I went to his signing session, I chatted to him a little bit and got both of these books signed. So absolutely delighted, lovely guy, really interested in his work now, more so now that I've met him. And there were some other authors that I didn't know at all, and through the course of going to the event, talking to them, really want to know more about them now. I'm interested in their voice, I've heard them speak, I've heard their approach to story, because as a writer, that's what I'm most interested in. How do they come up with their ideas? How do they approach story? How do they approach editing? How do they approach world building? All of these things fascinate me, and I really want to know more about them. And when you get to know a person, when you get to understand their way of thinking, or you hear them speak on a panel, interact with other people, that can really win me over to a person. And hopefully that worked for Stephen Brust and a bunch of other people that I met, and I think it'll be really, really good. So I'm really, really curious to read his books now. I'm definitely going to read one, if not two, this year. I'm not sure I'm going to go through all of the Vlad Taltos ones, because as I said, there's something like 16 or 17 now. But if each one is different, and each one's a different style, and each one's a different approach, that also demonstrates his breadth as a writer and his talent and all the things that he's done. So a really fascinating guy. I'd definitely say check out some of his books if you haven't before. He's had some great praise from people on the back, like Roger Zelazny, Neil Gaiman, Cory Doctorow, Tad Williams. They've all given him cover quotes. So this guy doesn't need any boosting from me. But if you've never heard of him, I definitely say go and check it out. Before I go, because I keep forgetting to mention it, if you like this channel, you want to support this channel, please like and subscribe. If you like what I'm doing, you want to help on Patreon, you can. There's a ways to just support the channel there. But if you want to get involved as a writer, there's a private writing community that I run on Discord, where other writers post work and contribute and help each other improve their craft. There are higher tiers where I do signed books and signed special editions and stuff like that. So there again, if you want to help the cause and you don't want to do Patreon, great, then that's fine. Please like and subscribe and give me a thumbs up on the video, because that helps it spread to other people. Okay, that's all I'm going to talk about today, but I'll be back very soon with the other video talking about my experiences at Capricorn 43.